Hi folks, welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and it's patch 8.2 preview time. The Chinese are coming, and well, they're here. There they are. We're going to start things off with, we're going to dive in at the deep end, and we're going to take a look at the Chinese Tier 9 medium tank, the WZ-120, or, you know, if you're American, WZ-120, or if you're military, the Whiskey Zulu 120. But I just like to call it that stinking piece of Chinese shit, as I have affectionately come to know it after playing it on the test server. Yeah, as you may have guessed, I'm not a fan of this tank. This has been a really, really frustrating, annoying, aggravating tank to drive. And it all pretty much boils down to, well, two main reasons. However, we'll have a look at the stats and then I'll explain why I don't like this tank. So, 1650 hit points, which is smack bang in the middle of average tier 9 medium tank hit point land. So, not especially bad to begin with. It's a very, very light tank. 37.65 tons with my equipment setup of a 40.2 ton weight limit. So, that 600 horsepower engine seems a little bit weedy, but it's a very light tank and it actually has a pretty good power to weight ratio. The power to weight ratio of this thing is just short of 15.94 tons. And that, in fact, that changes. I think if you change the gun on it, because it's going to change the weight, put the 100mm gun on, and suddenly the power to weight ratio is 16.02 tons. So you're looking at 16 horsepower per ton on average, depending on what gun you got fitted, but the difference is minimal. So, power to weight ratio, good. Top speed, 56 kilometers per hour, no problem whatsoever reaching that top speed. It's a very, very fast medium tank. Well, it's not very fast, but, you know, it's certainly not slow. And it accelerates very, very quickly. So it's all sounding pretty damn good so far. And the mobility as well, 46-degree traverse. That's not bad at all. That's pretty good. So, you know, where's the bad? Well, the turret traverse is good as well. 42-degree turret traverse. That's a very, very quick turning turret. And the view range and signal range is exactly what you'd expect of a Tier 9. 390 metre view range, 750 metre signal range. So, where's the bad, Jingles? What's wrong with this tank? Well, the hull armour, well, you know what, it's not bad. 100 at the front, 80 at the side, 45 at the rear. What do you expect? It's a medium tank. So it's not fantastically well armoured, but it is well sloped. You know, it looks like the hull of a T-44, basically. Or to a lesser degree, the hull of a T-54. It's well sloped, it's well angled. It's a whole Type 59 look, really, isn't it? You know, the lower glacis is well sloped and angled as well. There's not much of it to shoot at. The upper glacis is nice and, you know, nice uniform, well armoured, well sloped, 100mm thick armour plate in the front of the upper glacis. So yeah, that's fine. Sides and rear, yeah, you'll get, you know, no sloping or angling whatsoever going on at the sides and rear. So, yeah, what do you expect? Medium tank. Can't really complain about that. It's no better or worse than any of the others. How about the turret? Turret's very good. The upgraded turret, 220mm thick at the front, and sloped, rounded, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Really, really good. Side of the turret isn't bad either, 160mm. Rear, yeah, 65. But, again, no different to any of the other Tier 9 medium tanks. So nothing bad there either. So far we've looked at everything other than the guns, and it's been either very, very good or the same as everybody else. So where's the bad, Jingles? Hold on, guys. I'm getting to it. Now, gun selection. As I mentioned in my sneak peek of patch 8.2, the philosophy with the medium tanks in the Chinese tree seems to be you get a choice of either going for a medium tank gun or a big heavy tank derp gun. Well, and that's certainly also true of the WZ-120. There's the 100mm, the medium tank gun, and here is the 122mm, the heavy tank gun. And yeah, it does look like it means business, doesn't it? So let's have a look at these two guns. There's the 122mm, and there's the 100mm. Now, I found that here at Tier 9, whereas in all of the other medium tanks and the light tanks, the choices between the two guns were pretty clear-cut. One was clearly more accurate, aimed faster, didn't do as much damage, didn't have as much penetration, and fired faster than the other one. So that's the medium or light tank gun. And the other one clearly had the longer aiming time, higher penetration, much longer reload, and much more damage, and was clearly the heavy tank gun. But the differences between these two at tier 9 are not quite as clear cut. The 100mm has the faster rate of fire, but it's not that much faster. It's 7.32 rounds per minute versus the 4.55 rounds per minute on the 122. It has less penetration, 215, but 215, well, I mean, the French get a gun at tier 6 that has the same penetration as that. This is a tier 9 tank, but 215 isn't bad. And remember, it's a medium tank, so get around the sides and rear. Yeah, so yeah, that's okay. We're all right with 215mm of penetration. Obviously, the 122mm gun has 257mm of penetration, so yeah, not bad. How about damage? Well, the big gun does 440, the 100mm does 320, which, yeah, we can live with that too. You know, there's a distinct difference there. But you come to the accuracy, and they're both as accurate as the other, or as inaccurate as the other. 0.38 is not good accuracy. It's not horrible accuracy, but it's on the bad side. And then you look at the aiming time, and the 100mm has 2.9 seconds of aiming time. That's kind of slow. And in fact, it's not that good at all for a medium tank. But it could be worse, because the 122mm has 3.4 seconds of aiming time. That is horrific. And it's primarily that aiming time which makes this gun totally wrong for this tank. But it's not just the aiming time of the gun. There's another factor on this tank. Well, there's a couple of other factors on this tank that make this, in my opinion, absolutely the wrong gun to use, and makes this one not very good either. Unfortunately, those are your only two choices, and that's why I hate this bloody tank. And the major problem is that it has no gun depression. It's like driving the French tank destroyer, the Renault UE-57. It's that bad. The gun depression on this thing is as bad as that. I'm not kidding you. This is a medium tank. You can be circling. It's got the mobility. It's got the speed, it's got the maneuverability. It can't get the gun down to shoot the tank. It's circling in the side. The gun will not go lower enough to hit the hull of an enemy tank it's in close combat with. You find yourself driving around enemy tanks and constantly taking pot shots into their turret because that's as low down as you can get the gun to go. It is absolutely horrifically bad. It's just, it makes the thing almost unplayable. Now, you might think, well, 220mm of turret armour, yeah, that's pretty good at the front. And while there are plenty of guns in the game that can get through 220mm of armour, don't forget, it's bouncy, it's rounded and sloped, and you're going to ricochet off this thing quite a lot. And to be fair, guns do ricochet off this turret quite a lot from the front. So, well, maybe you could use this thing hull down. No, it doesn't work either. It doesn't have the gun depression for it. In order to shoot at anything over the crest of a hill with this gun, you have to basically drive over the crest of the hill and be on the other side in full view of all their guns in order to be able to point the gun at them. You can't just stick your turret up and shoot. It just doesn't work. It does not have the gun depression to support it. It is it's the worst gun depression. I feel quite confident in stating that this thing has the worst gun depression of any medium or heavy tank that I have ever played. I find myself thinking fondly of German tanks and wishing I had their gun depression when I was driving this thing. It is that horrifically bad. It's comical. It's so bad. It's like this thing is just a joke that the designers are perpetrating on us. And the other problem with this thing, while nowhere near as big a problem as the total lack of any gun depression, is the fact that this thing is so light. It's got a very, very bouncy suspension. So what you'll find happens is you come screaming along a road, there's an enemy tank around the corner, you come up to the corner, slam the brakes on, and then the tank sits there for a second, rocking backwards and forwards on its suspension, and the gun's bouncing all over the place, and you're going, for Christ's sake, stay still. Oh, and he shot me. And then you go through that 3.4 second aiming cycle, and he shot you again, and suddenly you're on half health, and you haven't even aimed at him yet. And then when the gun finally does aim in, all you can hit is his turret, because his hull is too low down for you to bring the gun down and point at it. It is just horrible. Absolutely bloody horrible. That gun has absolutely no place on this tank whatsoever. It's too slow. The gun depression is so bad you cannot effectively employ the gun. The 100mm isn't that much better. It's a better gun. It's got better DPM. You can play it more as a medium tank, because that's what it is with that gun, but it's got the same god-awful gun depression. And it's the gun depression and the sense of inertia, and the fact that this thing is so light and the suspension is so springy that just kills it. It turns very, very quickly, but then it just won't stop turning. You can throw this tank around, but good luck stopping throwing it around, because it seems to have the most ridiculously overhyped sense of inertia to it. You'll be driving along, you'll be gunning along the road at 50 kilometers per hour. You'll need to do a sudden right turn. Now, it doesn't drift all over the place like the light tanks do. It's not that light. But you'll start turning, and it'll react to your controls very, very well. It will, there's no delay. It starts turning, but then you want it to stop turning, and it just won't. It keeps going, and you end up facing the wrong way, driving into a wall, sideways onto an enemy tier 10 tank. He just blasts you in the side where you have no sloping and only 80mm of armor, and then of course, it's game over. So this has been an immensely annoying tank to drive. It really, really has. And it's down to the shit gun depression. It's abysmally bad gun depression. I swear, I think I'm going to wake up and the designers are going to go, hey, we were only kidding. Here's what the real tank's like. And I sincerely hope that it's just this tank. If the rest of the Chinese mediums have gun depression as bad as this, they can fuck off. That is that bad. And the springy, bouncy suspension, and the fact that the tank is so light that when you bring it to a halt, it just rocks backwards and forwards on its suspension with the gun bouncing all over the place before you can even start the monstrously long aiming cycle. So, having said that, what equipment would I fit to this tank? Well, you've got to go for a vertical stabilizer. I fitted a gun rammer, vent, and a vertical stabilizer before I knew what this tank was like. To be completely honest, what you want is a tank gun rammer, vents, a vertical stabilizer, and a gun lane drive. Unfortunately, you can only fit 3 pieces of equipment. Vertical stabilizers are usually better if you can fit them than gun lane drives. Gun lane drives reduce your aiming time, and you say, well, but Jingles, these guns have horrible aiming time, so why wouldn't you put a gun lane drive on it? Well, yeah, they reduce your aiming time by 10%, but a vertical stabilizer makes your aiming circle 20% smaller to start with, and that's better than 10% less aiming time, if you see what I'm saying. But you'll wish you had the gun lane drive when you're trying to aim at something with that thing, because it is horrible. It's like aiming with the KV-1S's 122mm gun, and it's got practically the same reload as the KV-1S's 122mm gun. It's just a horrible, horrible experience. Improve ventilation, yeah, it improves the reload, it improves the aiming time, it improves the driver's ability to get the tank under control when you stop turning. It's just, yes, definitely want to improve ventilation. Yes, you're going to want a medium caliber tank gun rammer, especially if you're packing the wrong gun, but the right gun isn't that much better either. And yeah, you're going to want a gun lane drive as well. Unfortunately, you're just going to have to pick 3 and lose 1, because 3 is all you can have. Crew skills, well, I've gone for view range, recon on the commander, snapshot for extra accuracy during turret rotation and movement on the gunner, off-road driving, again, just to try and get that inertia under control, help the driver regain control of the tank when I've finished telling him to turn the thing, and repairs on the loader. Your mileage may vary. Now I suppose you're going to want to see some of the games I've played in this thing. Well, brace yourselves, because they ain't pretty. So here's my first game in the WZ-120. It's a Tier 9 standard battle on Runeberg. I've got the 122mm gun fitted, because I didn't know better. Whoa! Whoops. And then not watching where I'm going, and drive into the back of a Centurion. Oops, sorry. Ooh, frame rate took a bit of a nosedive there. Okay, now we're in business. In case it wasn't obvious, yep, more maps that have been remodeled to support the new rendering engine. Runeberg's one of them. Not got a shot at that T30. Oh. WZ-132, Tier 8 light tank. And I can't get the gun down. That's as low as I can get the gun down. Luckily his turret armour is shit, so I am actually able to hit him. But that was the first thing that started sending warning bells off in my head. And again, that was as far down as it, and he was right next to me, and I could only hit his turret. So that's started sending warning bells off in my head. Oh, what the hell's going on with this gun? But you know, very, very manoeuvrable tank. But I was finding it difficult to steer. Or I suppose it might be more accurate to say I was finding it difficult to stop steering it. Like you turn one way and it just didn't want to stop turning. And at first I thought it was just lag. You know, where you hit the controls and the server thinks you're still trying to turn even when you've taken your finger off the control keys. But it's been consistent, and only on this tank, none of the other ones I've driven. Look, stop bouncing around. And this tank really does wobble around the place when it's driving. There we go. See how the gun was just wobbling all over the place there as I brought the thing to a halt. Doing it again. T95 around the corner. So I ain't going to get that E75. Whoa, back up, back up, back up. Now he's used a repair kit. Artillery's just hit him. And... oh crap. And I try to blow his tracks off, but it ain't going to work. And I have to take a hit in order to try to get around him again. And that... forced to take a shot into the upper glacis of an E75 right in front of me, because I couldn't get the gun down low enough to hit his lower glacis. And this really started sending alarm bells off in my head after playing that game. I was, is this thing just bugged, or is the gun depression really that monstrously bad? Yeah, I'm afraid the gun depression is that bad. That's the FCM 50 there, by the way, the French tank. Tier 8 premium. Here comes the Tier 10 Chinese medium tank. It's pretty much the same gun as me. That is as low down as I can get the gun. I just cannot point the friggin' gun at him. So, yeah, a particularly short and brutal example of how bad this gun is on this tank. Well, here's a tier 10 game on Corellia. I've decided to follow this bat chat around as best I can and provide the derp, where he provides the burst. It's an assault map we're defending. Now, I hand up and admit that this is not the smartest thing I've ever done. But I spent so long waiting to aim, and it misses anyway, and just hits his tracks, that it's almost like the gun encourages you to stick around where you shouldn't be sticking around. And I shouldn't have stuck around there. I should have seen that lot coming up and just backed up straight away. Instead, sat there waiting for that bloody aiming time, just inviting them to shoot back at me. And check this out. And this is just trying to get a shot at this T-62A. And not able to get the bloody gun down low enough to take a shot worth taking, and just ended up missing. And then you spend so long reloading this bloody gun that either they're dead or they've killed you by the time you've loaded a second shot. And knowing what the gun depression on this thing's like, really shouldn't have been trying to do this. I took a hit there from something, but it did bounce, so that's, you know, encouraging. And I am so not used to guns that have aiming times this long. Not since driving the ARL-44 with a 90mm gun. And again, you sit there aiming and aiming and then somebody else kills him. Driving this thing is just an exercise in frustration, it really is. Well, this, for me, was the game that really sealed the fate of this tank. And of course the honeymoon period is now over. I had at least 3 games with fair matchmaking. Now I am the only tier 9 in a game full of tier 10s and tier 8 artillery, and one very, very unfortunate looking tier 6 light tank. And that, I don't know if you can see, the gun depression is just horrible. Absolutely bloody horrible. There you go, that's it. That's your gun depression. That's as far as it goes. And here's the aiming time. And it's not a particularly high velocity shell either. And look at the amount of gold flying around. Look at all the blue tracer. Premium tracer that's going in. And this is one of the reasons why the test server is such a fucking pain in the arse. Especially if you're driving something with a bit of armour. It's impossible to evaluate how good the armour performance actually is. Because everybody is firing gold at you. But back onto the story of the lousy gun depression. And what's just... Now that is about the limit of the gun depression of this thing. And I do get a good hit on that T-54E1. But this gun depression is so mind-bogglingly bad. And then it takes you so long to aim. And then the shot bounces anyway. I think this is it coming up. There we go. Yeah, I'm trying to hit this pattern. And I just cannot get the gun down. And so, yeah. Yeah. And now I can't get the friggin' gun up. high enough to hit anybody. And amazingly, that pattern obviously doesn't have any crew skills whatsoever. Brand new crew. Tank you probably just researched an hour ago. Sat there for the entire reload cycle on this gun with his tracks blown off. And again, I'm just trying to get this friggin' gun down. Then I get the gun down and I spend the next week aiming and somebody else kills him. Absolutely horrible tank. And it's the aiming time and the gun depression that kill this tank stone dead. And you really, really need to be aware of your environment when you're driving this thing. I mean, you know, as you saw there, sitting on the cliff top. Do not be sitting this tank on cliff top shooting down at things below you, because you will forget where you are. You'll be so desperate to get a damaging shot in and actually point the tank's gun at whatever you're fighting that you'll drive off the edge of a cliff without realising it, as I did there. And there, as you can see, turret armour ain't that bloody good, but that was probably gold being fired at me. You know, it's just test server. What can you do? Well, alright, let's give it another go with the 100mm gun. It's a very distinctive looking gun. You certainly know the difference between one of these on with a 122 and one with a 100mm. And the 100mm has less penetration. It's exactly the same accuracy, but it fires a little faster. Doesn't do as much damage. The aiming time is still shockingly bad, but it's not as horrifically shockingly bad. Let's see what we can do with this thing. Well, we can miss our first shot. Look at the matchmaker, by the way. I'm the only tier 9. There's 2 tier 8 artillery, me, and everybody else is tier 10. Speaking of artillery, there's 1. Keep moving, keep moving. There's 2. Tracks damaged. Get them back up and keep moving, because it's a Rain 155 shooting out, or a Batch Out 155 shooting out. Yeah, there's 3. Yeah. No, don't shoot at all those tier 10s. Kill the tier 9 first. He's clearly the most dangerous threat. But it's the gun depression that's just going to bite you in the arse time and time again on this thing. Yay, I got killed. No, don't help me out or anything, guys. No, I'll be fine. Yeah, I just got shot in the back by my own by my own team. Yeah, and then finished off. And yes, it was that FV4202 actually blew my tracks off as I was trying to manoeuvre around the IS-7. Oh, it's just no. Sorry. This tank it stinks. It is shit. It could have been so good. I really like the idea of being able to choose between having a heavy tank or a medium tank gun on your medium tank. The concept's really good. I really like the idea, but the execution, it was absolutely hopeless. No, and it's just down to the abysmally bad gun depression. It makes it impossible to kill anything other than, you know, a piece of crap like that. Tier 6 light, or is it tier 7 light? It's a tier 7 light, whatever. It's a medium tank. You're supposed to be using the thing in close combat with other tanks, driving around the sides and rear, blah 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 blah, you know, whatever, so on and so on. But unless you can shoot those tanks that you're circling, what's the point? And you can't get the gun down low enough to shoot them anywhere where it's going to hurt them. So no, the gun depression kills this tank. It really, really, really does. The gun depression and the aiming time just absolutely destroys any chance this tank has of being any good. They're going to have to do something. And I sincerely hope that the other Chinese mediums and heavies don't have gun depression as bad as this, because I just don't want to play them if that's the case. This is going to be the shortest series of patch 8.2 preview videos you guys have ever seen, if the other Chinese tanks are all like this one as far as the gun depression is concerned, because it is painfully bad. It's so bad I do not want to play the game if it means having to play any more of tanks like this. So fingers crossed that the other Chinese tanks aren't as abysmally shit as the Tier 9 medium WZ-120. Otherwise this could be the shortest series of videos ever. As always, take care on the battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.